What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Cost, and today, you guys, we have a fantastic episode in store for you guys. Unfortunately, my co-host Tyler is out tonight, so I have had the great honor of bringing back on a face that you have seen on this show once before. Joining me from Cranston, Rhode Island, please welcome back to the show, Mr. Sean Howe. Sean, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How you been?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good myself, man. I am happy to have you back on the show. I'm really excited for what we have in store tonight. And I definitely was, as soon as I saw some news happen in the NFL, you were the first person I thought of, and I needed to get you on my show ASAP. And we're going to get into all that throughout this show. So before any of you guys, do anything, obviously Sean has been on the show before. The last time we had you on, though, I wasn't able to get a good shot at your face. Unfortunately, you were doing it in a dorm, in a kind of a hallway. So you unfortunately had a mask on. So this is the first time face reveal on Down to the Wire. I'm glad to finally have you on the program, face off. And, let's just get right into it. So obviously, this past weekend was absolutely bonkers in the football world, both NFL and college. We're going to get into all that. But first things first, for anyone who doesn't know about the NFL, the first Monday after the last regular season Sunday game is a day in the NFL referred to as Black Monday. And basically, it's just that any guy who is on the hot seat that is on a losing team and is most likely out of the playoff picture, that's the day that a lot of those guys just get the axe and they are then just fired from their teams. And we saw a bunch of guys get fired on that Monday, some more surprising than others. Definitely one I'm going to want to get with Sean on. But obviously, two of the ones that a lot of people were seeing as not so surprising was Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears. A lot of people were calling for his job and thought that he was going to be fired as early as Thanksgiving this year. Bears GM Ryan Pace also got fired. We also stay in the NFC North and we look at Mike Zimmer and GM Ryan Spielman, who both got fired there. And then just today, we're recording this episode on Tuesday. So just as of a couple minutes ago, it was reported that New York Giants head coach Joe Judge is now out after just 2 seasons. So those are some moves that people were expecting to happen. Obviously, some people maybe thought that Zimmer could have gotten another shot, some different things like that. But listen, Sean, I'm not here with you to talk to you about Matt Nagy and Joe Judge and Mike Zimmer. Obviously, the big coaching change that has happened that really shocked the NFL world, and myself included, was the Miami Dolphins coming out and saying that they have officially parted ways with head coach Brian Flores. That comes only a day after having a great victory over the New England Patriots, storming back on the year to win to finish the year 8-1, winning 8 of their last 9 games, an amazing end of the regular season. But the Dolphins say no, and they end up cutting bait with Brian Flores anyways. Sean, I know you were a massive Dolphins fan, so I want to hear your opinion on this right away. What are your thoughts, man?
So when the news came out, I was obviously very frustrated. One, where a lot of fans actually, the Instagram page was blown up, thousands of comments when they posted it publicly on the Instagram that Brian Flores had been released, and people were like, "This is why? He's been the best coach that the Dolphins have had in a while. We've got talent. We've been 1-2 games short of the playoffs the last 2 seasons. Remember last year we lost to Buffalo, and if we won that game, we were in." And the more I thought about it, the more I understood it a little bit. Like the more it sunk in, and Miami is not like a lot of teams where they keep a lot of guys long term. A lot of the guys come in on rookie contracts. They stay their rookie contracts. Miami can't afford to keep them, get rid of them, send them on somewhere else. Brian Flores, however, comes out of that Bill Belichick mindset of we're going to build this team. We're going to take time to build this team. And we saw a reoccurring theme from last year that came into this year. Last year, the Dolphins, I believe, started 1-3 or 1-4. This year, they started 1-7 or 1-7. Yeah, 1-7.
It was 1-7 on
the
year.
Yeah. So there's a recurring theme of Brian Flores wants to build up a team. The problem is in Miami, you got to either make a run or you don't. They're a short-lived team. Every year it's a new team. It's not like the Patriots in that Bill Belichick era. Most of the team was the same. Most of your stars were the same. Here in Miami, you got constant rotating rosters. I mean, tight end Mike Gesicki is about to be up on the free agency block. Mm-hmm. And Miami hasn't said anything about bringing him back yet. So, we have players, they earn value, and they go away. So if we're going to make a run, we got to make a run now. And Brian Flores isn't the type of coach to make a run. He builds a team. He builds his offense. I mean, we watched it last year. We watched it this year. Progressively, every game the Dolphins got better. Now, is it a different story if Tua stays healthy the whole year? Maybe. Who knows? But to lose 7 straight just because one guy isn't in the game, what do you know? There's only so much we can do, and there's only so much time we can give. But eventually, we got to make a run. We're a short-lived team, short burst team. We come here for a few years, and for a few years we'll go sit at the bottom. They'll make another run for a few years. Brian Flores wants to build a team, and I think the front office is more we gotta go now. And Brian Flores has struggled to get the team there quick enough to even make a playoff appearance.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, he hasn't gotten into the playoffs in his during his tenure there, but at the same time, when I see what Brian Flores had to inherit going into that Miami situation, I mean, we were joking about it before the show, talking about Adam Gase with his bug eyes, kind of just like going in there and screwing up the whole situation. But basically, Brian Flores inherited a really bad situation in Miami. Well, during his first season, people thought that going into those first 2 games of the 2019 season, people thought the Dolphins were not going to win a single game, and ended up, I think having a respectable end of their season, similar to how these past couple seasons have gone. And I think with Brian Flores, the way you can maybe see it as, all right, because there's so much turnover, it's going to take time for this team to learn to adjust. But I think what you see is it takes Flores kind of a little bit to understand that learning curve each season. But then once he gets it, the team thrives. And it's actually remarkable as to how well they do. This is back-to-back seasons in which they've had winning records. And like, while you could say that he, unfortunately hasn't gotten the results of getting the playoffs, when you look at what he had to come into, this is the best situation that you can be in. You're facing the Buffalo Bills, who are, starting to really emerge as, as a powerhouse in the division. I know they took a bit of a step back this year, and now you also have a young Mac Jones in this division as well. I'm going to throw out the Jets just because even if Zach Wilson proves to be a stud, they still screw things up. So when you're the Miami Dolphins and you're finding yourself in a situation where you come back from being 1-7 on the year, and something was able to click. Something was able to click with these guys where they understood their coach, and they had massive improvement. I'm not saying that Brian Flores is for everybody, but I really am just skeptical of this move overall. I'm already seeing a bunch of guys on ESPN too saying that this is a questionable move. Like they're already saying that they believe this is a mistake.
That's 100% a questionable call. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen. Who are we going to bring in? That's the real question. Who's the next head coach? You can't bring back Adam Gase. You know that. So, I think it could be the right move. Like, again, and a lot of people are going to disagree, but I took a lot of time to sit on it after the news came out. And at first, again, I was the same as everyone else. Why? Winning record, promising future, why? But let's look at what happened last year. We came 1 game short of the playoffs. It looked like it was going to be a promising future this year. We're going to make the playoffs. So how do we know that we don't keep hitting like this same cycle? As I was saying, Miami's a short burst team. The talent leaves after a couple of years, bring in rookies, and then Brian Flores is going to be a continuous cycle of just having to get to that point in the midseason where everything clicks. But the problem is in the NFL is sometimes that point is too late, and it's proven now twice that point was too late. Just think about it. If the Dolphins had won even one of those 7 games, they would have played week 18 for a playoff spot. That's all it would have taken. 1 win in those 7 straight losses. 7 straight. Yes, they went on to win 8 in a row, or seven in a row, and then they lost, and then they won. So 8 out of 1, or 8 and 1 out of 9. They still lost 7 in a row. That's still something you can't ignore as a front office. I mean, if you're an organization, you can't expect to make the playoffs if you lose almost half your season.
I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't. Straight. I mean, you can't ignore it, but when you're dealing with a quarterback like Tua, who's dealt with injuries for pretty much all of his NFL career at this point, and really just has up until later on in the season wasn't really able to have an offense that really suited his needs. It's tough for me to really put the blame on Flores, and I think that you just look at the GM down in Miami, and it really feels like he's just trying to shift blame away from himself. And I get that he's trying to maintain a job for himself, but it really just seems like he basically just turned Brian Flores into the scapegoat. And I just think it's real scummy. Now, listen, if Miami's going to look for a new head coach, this is the kind of thing I'm like, where it has to be like, all right, you could have a good thing here, but if you're going to move on and you're going to get a new coach, this guy has to be a significant upgrade in your mind over this person. I'm not, the Dolphins, you're not going internally here and promoting some guy. There better be some big fish in the water that you're going to try to lure down to Miami to, be the next coach of this program. I don't want it to be, I as a Dolphins fan, I wouldn't want it to be like just like some coordinator like Nathaniel Hackett from the Packers, who, he's good, but I don't know if that's necessarily the guy that you just bring into this operation. If there's a big fish out there that I think the Dolphins are going to look into. Now, I know it's been turned down a lot, but apparently the Dolphins GM has ties to Michigan. He went there for college. He's from the Detroit area, and people were saying that there was speculation that the Dolphins could bring in Jim Harbaugh. I don't know about that, but what are your thoughts on it?
So I read up on that quick because it did come across quick, and I believe it had already been declined or denied that he was making an attempt at that.
Yeah.
That somebody had already speculated that and it had already been turned down. So I don't know who they're going to go for. And I think part of, what I'm saying is me wanting to look at this as a good move when I'm sitting here going, oh, well, maybe it's because this and because that and Flores' coaching style, because he's a great coach, just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But I don't have an answer to who is the fit. But as a Dolphin fan, it's frustrating because you want to support, your front office, obviously, and you want to say, okay, they're making good decisions, we're getting better. But who is better than Brian? Who on the market is better than Brian Flores? Let's ask that question. Not many people.
No, exactly. Once Brian Flores is on the coaching market, he is basically, the guy that is, I think, going to be the most coveted coach going into this offseason. I think that he has a good shot for the Minnesota job if he wants it. If Denver gives him a ring, I think that that would be a great move for them. So I think Brian Flores is now the key guy on the market for coaches. And a lot of people weren't expecting it to be him to be available. Now, obviously when they went on that streak of losing 7 in a row, a lot of people were saying, all right, Brian Flores is going to lose his job. But having that miraculous run to kind of reinvigorate the team, it kind of shows like, all right, this team may actually have something in them. But I don't know. I look at the whole situation with the Dolphins, man, and I see how it all like paved out. And yeah, like they had that 0-7 run, which is killer in the NFL. You can't have a run where you lose 7 in a row. That's just going to destroy your season. But they ended up beating the Patriots twice this year. The Patriots are a surprisingly good team. Obviously, they're young, but they were able to beat them twice this year in kind of 2 different ways. The first time they were able to kind of just, have the better defensive scheme over them. Obviously, that Damian Harris fumble at the end kind of screwed us. But in this game, the offense for the Dolphins seemed much better. The defense for the Dolphins just kind of really took it to Mac Jones, and they were able to do away with the Patriots fairly easily. They beat them 33-18. Or no, that wasn't the score. What was the final score?
The Dolphins Patriots team. It was 33-24.
33-24. Yeah, that was the score. So obviously, the Dolphins had the lead going into the final seconds of the game. Patriots kind of screwed up trying to have their own miracle in Miami, and basically ended up just kind of throwing it, just having a terrible fumble in their own end zone. But I mean, the Dolphins were able to outlast the Patriots. They got up on them early. So I mean, you're able to be a very good playoff team twice. I think they had some other great wins throughout this run as well. So I don't know, man. I'm gonna really have to see what they do from here. But I kind of agree with all the ESPN commentators. I think this was a mistake.
I think it was a mistake, but I think the only hope I have right now, and as I've been saying from the beginning, is that there's a coach out there that's going to work at a faster pace, which is what the front office. I think that's what the front office is looking for. I'm being completely honest. As a Dolphins fan, I've seen it since I was able to watch football. We have a good team. We don't. We do. We don't. We do. We don't. We don't. We don't go on these runs where we're a good team for 7 to 8 years. We're a good team for 2-3 years, and then we're at the bottom of the division. Well, ignore the Jets; they're their own thing. But we're at the bottom of the 3-man run for 3-4 years. Then we come back second place. Trying to compete with obviously Tom Brady, which never happened. But even then we split a lot. But we were trying our best. But it becomes frustrating eventually. Like, we made the playoffs once as a wild card team, then we got destroyed in the first round.
Yeah.
We can never get going. And I don't think Brian Flores gets the team going fast enough. I'm hoping that's what the front office took from this. You can't get firing.
I mean, you could say that they're complaining about it not getting going fast enough, but basically every single other coach that's been brought to Miami has tried to kickstart this thing way too quick, and they've all fallen flat on their face. So I don't know why they had to pull the plug on Flores like this, especially when, you were actually starting to see legit results from him, whether they be conventional or not.
I'm just hoping that they saw something that the rest of us missed, whether
Yeah.
it's something that's behind closed doors, something on film, there has to be. I'm hoping it's not just the GM, like you said, trying to cover up. And this whole segment, I've been trying to be looking on the light of it and seeing that there hopefully is a good side to this. But it is tough. I mean, like I said, when the news first broke, I was almost confused. Somebody texted me about it after I was with a teacher. I was substituting, and he told me about it. And then I got a text about it, and I was like, "There's no way this is real." Like it almost seemed like one of those like fake Instagram posts you see where it's like so and so got traded
Yeah.
to whatever team. Like it was like, "There's no way this is real." And then I looked it up, and I was like, "Why?"
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Well,
there's
speaking of
always
fake,
reasons.
yeah, speaking of fake Instagram posts, I saw one saying that the Dolphins had made their new decision on head coach. It was just a picture of Urban Meyer.
No, no, please no.
That would be the move of the century if that was to happen.
I just want something to not be fake news with the Dolphins and it to be good news.
Yeah, no,
It seems whenever anything starts going the right way, we always find a way to make it go the wrong way.
yeah. So I mean, that's gonna be the interesting thing. Maybe the Dolphins did see something with Brian Flores. From what I've heard, he's and he not everyone loves him. Some people can kind of have a bit of an issue with his coaching style. So maybe there was something that we missed, but I don't know. We're gonna have to see how that really plays out. It'll be interesting to see who the Dolphins end up going after in this NFL offseason to lead their operation going forward. But the next thing I wanted to talk with you about this crazy week in the NFL was obviously this Monday was an absolute crazy one, but the weekend leading into it was pretty historical, and at least in my mind. So obviously some people, you can make the case for being a fan of the NFL expansion playoffs or being not a fan against being a fan against it. You can still understand, like, all right, like this is going to create new scenarios, and there's going to be plenty of new opportunities that are going to rise for certain teams. And we saw all of that on this Sunday. Now, people were talking on TikTok about potential playoff scenarios for certain teams, and everyone was basically saying, "Oh yeah, like if the Jaguars were able to beat the Colts, this would open Pandora's box, and this would kind of create a bunch of different opportunities." And everyone was just saying like, "Well, yeah, but the Jaguars would have to beat the Colts." And everyone was just saying, like, listen, the Jaguars are the worst team in the league. They're not going to be able to beat the Indianapolis Colts. It's just going to be Colts, and then whatever team is below them end up winning, and it's just going to be a fairly conventional end of the regular season. That did not happen. The Jacksonville Jaguars pulled the absolute stunner on the Colts and didn't just beat them. They dominated them from start to finish, which was actually the most surprising thing. It's not like you lost on a heartbreaker like the Patriots lost on the Miami Miracle, and it's just like some crazy thing that cost them the game. The Jaguars dominated. They absolutely throttled the Colts. I mean, Jonathan Taylor really just wasn't it. Carson Wentz completely folded in the game. So, I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw that Colt game unfold?
I mean, I first off, I was rooting for the Colts. I'll be honest. And a
Oh yeah,
teammate that I played with in high school played for them, so I had the jersey on. I was rooting. I was going for it, and I turned away for a little bit, took a week. So I'm like, "Oh, this game won't be close." Came back and you looked at the scoreboard and you went, "What happened?
yeah,
What happened? Like where did the Colts take a week off thinking they had an easy win? Did
no idea.
Jacksonville have a click in the locker room? What happened? But it opened up. I mean, a whole situation, as you called it, Pandora's box for the entire weekend and for the playoff situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely wild because I mean, you're talking about like, did the Colts take a week off? And I mean, you honestly had to ask yourself that because of just the way that they played. It seemed like they were completely absent. It almost looked like the scenes from the first Space Jam movie where all the stars kind of just get all their powers zapped away. They just had nothing in them. It was actually like just weird to see, and they end up losing. And the crazy thing about the situation is if the Colts just beat the Jaguars in that game, they are automatic. They are in the playoffs today. But they ended up losing that game, and basically it was like, oh, they can still make it, but a lot of these things have to go right. And then we fast forward to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ravens game. The Steelers ended up beating the Ravens on an overtime field goal, officially ending the Colts run. Big Ben plays is going to have at least one more game in his NFL career. That's for sure. That'll be probably against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to have to see how that goes down. And then the playoff situation that everyone was dreaming about came up during Sunday Night Football. Now, while Big Ben, for a lot of people, thought possibly had been able to clinch a playoff spot, there was a scenario that was getting talked about on TikTok that everyone was really excited about. And it was the idea that if the Colts had lost and the Steelers had won, the Raiders and the Chargers had a possibility to both enter the playoffs if they tied in their Sunday Night Football match. And people were basically saying that the Raiders and Chargers should just come to an agreement and kneel on every single play, take the 0-0 tie, and just, us just get into the playoffs. I saw one TikToker go as far as saying, if you guys do not tie, you do not care about your team and getting into the playoffs. I was like, that's bold, but he ended up saying, if you play this game, you do not care about getting into the playoffs. You care more about appearance. And I was like, that's bold, but but you can understand where he's coming from with that. But then you look forward to how you look into that game going, and everyone's going, oh yeah, but they're talking about a tie, but that's never going to happen. And then it actually happened. It was tied 29-29 at the end of regulation. Both teams exchanged a pair of field goals, and it looks like the Raiders were actually going to kneel down and have the tie and have this insane situation play out. And then in the last possible moments, Josh Jacobs breaks free on a run and ends up scoring. He ends up getting the first down, and they kick the game-winning field goal, eliminating the Chargers from the playoffs and pushing themselves forward. It was a crazy thing. What was your reaction to that whole thing, though, Sean?
I mean, first off, when I thought they were going to take the knee, I was like, this was never going to happen. For the amount of things that went the way they went this weekend, let's just start at the beginning. The Jags beat the Colts. Now Pittsburgh comes in and beat the Ravens. Now we have a situation where if a game ends in a tie, both teams make it. But if the team wins, only one team makes it. Mm-hmm. Now they're in overtime with 2 minutes left, tied.
Yeah.
At this point, nobody knows. I'm sitting here. I was watching on my computer right here. I'm like, who knows what's going to happen? And I had seen reports afterwards. I watched it. I watched them go down and kick the game winner. And I saw things after. And I don't know how true this is, but there's a video clip of Austin Eckler talking to one of the Ravens, or not Ravens, to the Raiders players. And they believe that in that conversation, it was presumed that if the Chargers didn't take a timeout, that the Raiders were just going to kneel it out and actually give them the tie and send both teams to the playoffs, ending Big Ben's run as a Pittsburgh Steeler officially. But, they took that timeout, they drove the field, kicked the field goal, and now look, Big Ben's got one more chance. And all Big Ben could do was watch. Actually, did you see the thing? Mike Tomlin was asleep too. Didn't even care. Didn't even watch the game. They did a press conference with him. He admitted in the press conference that he was asleep during that overtime game.
Oh my God.
So he woke up and had no idea if he was in the playoffs. He just assumed it would never end in a tie.
Oh my God. That's insane. I mean, I had no idea that it was possibly even going to end in a tie as well. Now, I actually thought the Chargers were going to have the advantage coming into that game, just seeing how they've been all this year. But I mean, the way that game played out, man, was unreal. And I saw the clip that you're talking about as well. I think Eckler ends up asking, hey, were you going to take a knee? And he ended up saying, and the Raiders player ends up saying, yes, we were. And and I think you see Eckler just mouth the words, damn, man. I'm like, yeah, honestly, because that just sucks. Like, you had the playoffs within your grasp, and your head coach, Brandon Staley, basically just chucked it out the window.
All over a timeout. A timeout ended your playoff run. How often do you hear that? A timeout stopped the team from making the playoffs.
It's crazy. I mean, I wonder what I don't think Brandon Staley would face any repercussions for that. Now, I mean, listen, you can make the case that it's a dire mistake and ended up costing his team, a chance to play for a Super Bowl. But I think that Brandon Staley did a good job with this team this year. First year head coach. I like what he did for this team. And I think that the Chargers and Herbert are going to be on a mission next year. So I'm really excited for what they have in store. But what are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, we have to give him, I don't want to say an excuse, but in a normal situation where, we're not in the scenario we are where a tie sends both teams to the playoffs. As a head coach, now keep in mind it's his first year, so he's never really been in this situation. I don't know how many times they went to overtime this year, but I don't know if he's ever been in this situation before in his coaching career. So in a normal situation, we week 4, week 5, you might take that timeout. You might risk losing a game to try and win one to give you that advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can't even really blame him as much as it was poor understanding of the situation. He was trying to make a decision based on like how any coach probably would. Oh, we're trying to win a game. You're trying to win. The objective of a football game is not to end in a tie. The objective of a football game is to win. And I think that was the mindset he had, and it just came back to bite him in the rear.
Well, that's the mindset you typically think of, but I actually saw Justin Herbert on the sideline. It was another clip of people reading lips, and apparently someone was able to read Justin Herbert's lips, and he ended up saying, and you could see him actually mouth the words, "I've never wanted a tie so bad."
Oh yeah, I mean a tie would have saved the playoffs. Now they're home on the couch. I mean, I don't blame him, believe me, but it's just a tough spot to be in as a head coach because how many coaches are think about it in the history of the NFL? How many coaches have ever been in a position where there's 2 minutes left in overtime and all they need is a tie to send their team to overtime?
Yeah.
How often has that even ever happened before?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, in the 100+ years of the NFL now, I really couldn't tell you if that's happened.
It's so rare, and you're putting a first-year coach in that spot, not even a coach with any kind of experience. For all we know, Bill Belichick, Super Bowl champion, could have made the same mistake. It's a first-year coach. He's learning. He makes mistakes. You know, how can he know they're going to kneel? For all he knows, they're going to try and take that ball right down the field on top of him. And he's trying to call a timeout, get his guys together, figure out what their plan is.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah,
you can't control. Sadly, at the end of the day, you don't know. We can say now, oh, they were going to kneel at that timeout was dumb, but you don't know, and I know it playing football. You don't know what they're thinking across that field. You have no idea what's going through anyone's head. So for all you know, they're going to try and run that ball down your throat. And if you're not in the defense you want to be in, then you're going to call that timeout and switch that defense out. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. That's the beauty of football. It's pretty much a big game of chess with 22 big dudes.
Yeah, no, I mean it absolutely is the beauty of football. I mean, it was just a crazy game to see, but man, while we were talking about the Chargers and some of their misfortunes, obviously in this last game, I just want to give a hats off to the Las Vegas Raiders for being able to even be in this situation, knowing what they went through this year with their whole situation involving John Gruden, the Henry Ruggs situation, multiple other players being involved in stuff off the field. I mean, it is a miracle that they're even in this position, and I think their assistant coach should honestly be, the coach of the year for all the crap that they went through this year and being able to put them in this position. Now, I think for winning coach of the year, you most likely have to play a significant number of games. I don't know if he qualifies for that, but man, I forget how to pronounce his name, but he definitely deserves that. He definitely deserves that award.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can't write it up anymore, like a movie. The team has issues internally and they somehow show up to a game where they are clearly the underdogs, pull it out, stick it into overtime, and take it into a win.
Yeah.
I mean, what more, it's like a movie, straight out of a movie.
Yeah. It's Rich Bashia, I think it is how you say it, or Bashia. So, I mean, he's done an incredible job with this team, being able to keep them focused. So credit to him. And I think that, I'll be interested to see what the Raiders do during these playoffs and then after this year. Cause I mean, Derek Carr, I still think of Derek Carr as being like, oh, like the young guy, the younger brother of David Carr, who was selected to the Raiders, but Derek Carr's 30 now. Like this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Raiders to see, do they move on from Derek Carr after this season? What's the deal with their head coach? Do they keep this interim guy and make him the full-time guy? There are plenty of questions about the Raiders. So after this run that they have in the playoffs, I'm going to be really interested to see what happens next.
I think a lot of the decisions are going to be based off of how they do in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
I think, is he worthy of a head coach? Well, how does he handle pressure? How does he handle playoff pressure? It's Derek Carr worthy of staying as a starting quarterback now that he's getting older. Again, how does he handle the playoffs? It doesn't matter how good you are in the regular season. You can't win a playoff game. Completely useless.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ton of different situations that'll be definitely in play this this postseason. So we're gonna have to look forward to see how that happens. But the next thing I wanted to talk with you in NFL history and NFL news rather, and the final thing I wanted to talk with you about actually harkens back to one of the teams we were talking about in the last segment, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, obviously, the Jaguars had themselves a great game against the Colts, and even in winning, they still managed to lock up the number one pick in the draft. So kind of a win-win in their situation. They went out in style and still managed to get the number one pick. Obviously, had themselves an abysmal season in doing so. But now they're going to be in possibly good position to get a great prospect in this year's draft. But when you look ahead to, you look down in Jacksonville, there was one storyline that was dominating this game before you even got into the situation with the Colts, and apparently there was just a giant group of clowns that descended on the Jaguars stadium on this past Sunday. And it's a very interesting story. Now, you said that you were looking this up beforehand, but I'll kind of give you a bit of an ESPN synopsis of this. So apparently the movement began on social media, and it was basically to voice displeasure over owner Shad Khan's reported decision to retain general manager Trent Balk, as well as the past decade of mismanagement, poor hiring decisions, and losses. Now, obviously, the Jaguars this season, abysmal year, had to deal with a bunch of the troubling situations involving Urban Meyer, and there's just been plenty of turmoil going on this year. I think Shad Khan took over the organization in 2012. And basically, ever since then, I think every single head coach he's hired, he has had to fire. No guy has been able to serve out their entire term and during his tenure as coach. So there have been a lot of things that have gone wrong. And seeing this guy Trent Balk get brought back is a very prominent part of this movement. Now, I was going to share you something before the show. I'll pull it up now. But if you see here, there's a video essentially that was posted about the Jaguars. And if you listen here, so you're going to have to listen here, but so just kind of listen closely and I'll play this video clip for you.
You doing it? Yep.
All right, so that's a very difficult audio clip to hear, but I did want to play it. So basically what happened, Sean, is they were doing kind of like a trivia game at the Jaguar Stadium, and the lady ends up asking, oh, what Jaguar guy I think maybe had like this like number of receptions in this season or had like this stat, something that you see at a lot of games. And this girl that gets called up, they ask her, oh, what do you think is the answer? And she ends up saying, I think the answer is letter C. And instead of saying the player's name, she ends up just saying fire Balk, and just like goes out and says that just on the thing. And that's why you see just a huge reaction from the crowd. Everyone was cheering and was super happy about it. And I think for the Jaguars to have something like this, it's fitting, because I hate Jaguars fans, knowing just seeing how they acted back in 2018 when they were trying to act kind of all big and strong when they were going into faces in the AFC Championship game. I mean, just seeing them have to go through this turmoil, it's kind of funny. But yeah, what are your thoughts, man?
I mean, I feel like I'm having deja vu. We were sitting here a year ago. Jacksonville again finished last, had the first pick, and we all were like, oh, they're gonna have a draft pick. They're gonna get Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, we all knew it coming draft night. Big Trevor Lawrence. Nothing's new.
No.
Here we are again. The end of the 2021-2022 season, and they're still in last. They still have the first pick. So, you were just saying, oh, they're going to have a good pick, but is anything going to change? Didn't change last year.
Yeah, I mean, nothing changed, but I think the organization and just the mismanagement of Urban Meyer was so extreme that there really was no saving this organization this year. And it makes me wonder whether Shad Khan will be able to get this, will be able to get this ship right. Now, Trent Balk has been the general manager and obviously has overseen a bunch of these bad moves that have gone down. So I think a lot of fans are basically saying, like, why are you bringing this guy on? Because he's the guy that's going to be leading the next coaching search. He's going going to be one of the lead guys doing this. And all the fans are just saying, like, why are you doing this? Why did you decide to retain this guy? The decision is not working. So I'll be interested to see whether Shad Khan folds under the pressure and ends up terminating this guy, or if he decides to stick true and basically tell all his fans to go screw.
Honestly, wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if he sticks with it. A lot of the time, the NFL looks at fans and goes, "There's a reason, we have all of this and you don't, and that's because we make the decisions." I feel like there's a lot of those moments that come out that we see here as fans. We were just talking about the Brian Flores thing. They were talking about this. At the end of the day, we can talk and talk and talk and talk all we want. We can make our voices heard. We can make an opinion. We can do whatever we want. And at the end of the day, they're the ones with the money. They're the ones who make the decision. They sometimes don't care what we think as fans.
No,
they
absolutely.
don't care what we have to say. And I feel like, with the situation Jacksonville's been in at this point, they might not care what their fans think. They might be like, hey, we're going to prove our fans wrong. Are they going to? Probably not. Let's look at their track record. But maybe they think there's something they got that, again, just like with the Brian Flores situation, maybe there's something Miami thinks they got. Maybe there's something all these teams think that they have that we just don't know. There's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors in these organizations. And there's the reason, again, that they're the ones with millions and millions of dollars, and we're the ones sitting here talking about it. So, maybe there is something that we're missing that's going to go down in Jacksonville. But honestly, I got to side with the fans on this one. I don't see what they're doing, but I also think Jacksonville's going to go through with it, and I don't see anything stopping them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when it comes to these NFL owners, I mean, Shad Khan is worth $9 billion. So, I mean, you're like, little protests and things like that aren't going to do it. What's going to make the difference, which the Jaguars fans, I think, realized, is embarrassment. When you see fans show up with paper bags on their heads and dressing up as clowns to mock you for the job that you've done. Here's the thing: these guys can be worth a lot of money, and they may have launched very successful companies to make them money. But a lot of these guys usually have very thin skin. So I'll be interested to see whether Shad Khan is one of those guys and whether he ends up folding under pressure here.
Well, this is like the question I raised to you before we even started the show: who gets the last laugh? Because Jacksonville still made their money. Yes, everyone showed, clown costumes, and sure, they're probably embarrassed a little bit, but some people, it's all about the money. They don't care how they get it. They don't care how they get there. Mm-hmm. This could be one of those situations where he still got his money. He still filled that stadium.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, he still filled the stadium. He got his money, but at the same time, if what matters the most to these guys, and listen, money matters a lot, and it obviously, and cash is king, obviously, all the way. But with these guys, their reputation, if they're made to look a fool, that gets to them. And I think if enough people get to Shad Khan, there's a chance that he cracks.
Yeah, we hope. I mean, that's all Jacksonville fans can do is hope that eventually he'll give in and give them what they want. But
yeah,
I just don't see that happening. I don't see people. I just don't see it. Again, we don't see it a lot around the NFL where players or fans sometimes have an impact because they want to make the fans happy, but sometimes they think proving fans wrong is part of them. Listen to the front office.
Yeah, well, they try to turn it into like an underdog mentality and basically say, oh, you guys all doubted me, so I'm gonna go out and do this. But listen, Shad, it's not like it's not like you had a bad hire. You've had I think 4 bad hires in a row. I mean, the fact that you've had to fire every single guy that's come through your system, it speaks volumes.
I mean, when was the last time they were good? It was when they played you guys, right? In the AFC Championship.
Yeah, so the 2017-18 season. Yeah, 2017-18 season.
Ever since then, what have they had? They've had now 2 first-round picks, which are first overall picks, which is not something you really want to go around boasting. I mean, twice to end up in that situation with a quarterback as talented as Trevor Lawrence. You can't keep a head coach that is stable for long. So there's a point where you might want to start listening to your fans, but you also raise the question of, yeah, we have football IQ, but how much football IQ do we have compared to them at the same time? Fans can voice their opinions. I can say firing Brian Flores was the dumbest thing Miami has done in the decade. It's not. Adam Gase was close second, but it doesn't mean I know enough. I don't have his resume in front of me. I don't have his playbook in front of me. There's a lot of things IQ-wise, again, that go behind closed doors. We can only talk about what we know. But there's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know what's going on behind Jacksonville doors right now. For all we know right now, he's cracking his pants embarrassed about what happened this past Sunday. But they also won. Mm-hmm. So, I think that changes things a little bit. They won the game, maybe showed a little hope.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence finally looked good.
Oh yeah, so I was gonna say I think that throws a little wrench in it though, because it's like they went in there in clown costumes ready to laugh at him, but then his football team went out there and kicked the snot out of a team that was on the verge of the playoffs. And now look, Colts are back on the couch.
Yeah.
So to say that they competed with the playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you end up seeing the thing about I don't know if you saw this, but it was on the Colts it was on the Jaguar social media page, and they ended up posting a picture of the Colts, and it was basically like it was the Jaguars mascot holding up like the word Colts, but the L in Colts was highlighted.
No, I'm looking this up now because
yeah, it's on the Jaguars Instagram. It was actually really
here
funny.
it is. Here it is. All right, respect to Jacksonville.
Yeah, no, I found that to be pretty funny. So that was
that's clever.
Yeah, no, that was funny that they were able to do that. I'll be interested to see obviously what the Jaguars do coming up next. I mean, unfortunately with the Jaguars, nothing ever really looks good with them. So I don't really know what's going to be next for them, man. But that concludes what we have in NFL news tonight. Before we do end up going, man, I do have one last topic for you, and it is reviewing the national championship game for you. That obviously happened on this Monday to end the Monday Madness. And man, what a game it was. Now going to this game, Georgia was favored over Alabama by 2.5 points, and everyone from what I heard was just hammering Bama in the bets and basically saying like, oh, Bama is just going to kill them again. Just seeing the way that the SEC championship played out, Georgia had the number 1 ranked defense coming into that game, but Bama seems to have the answer. Nick Saban is still Kirby Smart's daddy. Like, it seemed like it was going to be destined for another Alabama beatdown. And it seemed like that's what it was going to be. And then we just had our socks blown off as Georgia ends up beating Bama 33-18. And my God, man, that defense returned to form in every way possible. And man, one of the funniest stories of this whole thing, man, has been Georgia's QB Stetson Bennett. Have you seen that? Have you seen the whole thing with him?
They were talking about it. I think we were talking about. They were talking about it at the end of the game last night. That's the only bit I saw of it. I haven't looked too deep into it, but
yeah. So Stetson Bennett, so for anyone who doesn't know who he is, he was Georgia's QB last night, ended up winning the game, went 17-26 passing, 224 yards, 2 TDs. But man, Stetson Bennett, man, just is kind of, I mean, he has a good story, but he's also kind of a meme to where it's like people were kind of hyping him up as like this guy. And I'm just like, I really don't think so. So coming into this year, Georgia had like 3 different quarterbacks that they were rolling with. And it was just like, oh, like, what are they going to end up doing? And Stetson Bennett was buried at 3rd on the depth chart. He originally came to Georgia as a preferred walk-on, then transferred to a junior college, then came back to Georgia and ended up, through injuries and whatnot, managed to, become the starting guy. And man, he ended up leading them to a national championship. I can't get over it, man. I was watching the game last night with my friends and seeing him in the post-game presser. And the only thing we could think of is just hearing a guy named Stetson Bennett. We literally thought just a lacrosse player ended up sneaking his way onto a football team. I was like,
they were showing him.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way. I was like, there's no way there's a football player named Stetson.
I think it wasn't his last name. Like, wasn't it the 5th too? Like, it wasn't just.
Yeah, it's Stetson Bennett. It's Stetson Bennett the 4th. There's a lineage with that. Yeah, there's a lineage with that.
There you go. It was kind of a crazy story. They showed him crying at the end of the game. I remember that they were talking about. I think it was his mom. They said mom had cancer or something.
Yeah.
He was playing, and I remember he was crying after one. You just looked at the back of the jersey and you're just like, how is that man with that last name a national champion? Like, it doesn't say football player. It says lacrosse something. I was
bowling champion.
The guy's name.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, name, but he still won.
No, exactly. I mean, it just feels like just like some guy like had like a Freaky Friday incident with Tom Brady, or just any quarterback, and was able to kind of just wander his way into a football field and somewhat do well. Stetson Bennett is kind of like an everyman story where it's like obviously he's like much better than us and all of us, but like the way the media was treating him after this game made you think that made you think he's going to be like the first overall pick in the draft coming up. He's not. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But people were like taking photos of him, like smoking the victory cigar, like he was Joe Burrow. I mean, he ends up getting called up on the stage during the trophy presentation. And I get that you do that with the quarterback every year. But typically when they do that, the quarterback that wins the championship is like the Heisman winner or has a chance to go on to the NFL. I don't know if that's going to be Stetson Bennett's career, but I just saw him up there and it just looked hilarious. Now, and it's just because Georgia's defense is so overpowering, and that's the reason that they were in this situation. So to see Bennett just kind of up on this stage, kind of just taking it all in, I'm just like, this feels so wrong.
I mean, I get it. He stepped in and filled some pretty big shoes. I mean,
No,
it's almost like
absolutely.
a Rudy story. I mean,
I was
Rudy,
about to say
Rudy was
it is like a Rudy story kind of.
it's a Rudy story, except he made it obviously to be the starting quarterback and win the national championship. But think about it. I mean, Rudy, all he cared about was playing at Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. He was on the field crew. He got in. He finally got on the practice squad. And he made that one game appearance. Now
Yeah.
let's look at this story. Started at Georgia as a preferred walk-on. Obviously wasn't going to get playing time. Left, got better, came back as a third string, made his way up to the starter, and then went and won a national championship. I mean, as much as he's not an NFL caliber quarterback, that's still pretty impressive. I mean,
No, it's
movie
pretty.
quality stuff.
No, it's impressive. And I mean, whether you want to make the case of whether he'll ever be able to be in the NFL or not, there's no doubting in my mind he's going to. I mean, everywhere he goes in Georgia, people are going to love him for the rest of his life. He's never going to have to pay for a single thing in that state for as long as he lives. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's better than being an NFL quarterback. If you can just walk around and everyone sees your face and it ends up going that's the national champion. Like, get him everything he wants.
How many people can say they're a national champion?
Exactly. I'm gonna be really interested to see how this goes, because I mean, even today he was on Good Morning America. He's like the face of this whole operation, which I think is so funny. So I'm gonna be really interested to see how he kind of takes this thing. I mean, maybe he comes out next year and just like torches a league and actually is like a Heisman candidate. No idea, but I mean, that was a very funny situation involving him.
No, I mean, completely agree. But he pulled it off. He picked apart
Yeah.
Alabama's defense. Impressive, no matter who that quarterback is. To pick
Yeah.
apart Alabama, it doesn't get much. You're playing the number one ranked team. Alabama's always the number one ranked team. So there's always that thing on your shoulder of I got to go in and beat Alabama, who's
Yeah.
always here. They're always playing for the championship. They're used to being here. We're not. So there's a lot of things behind it. He walked into the stadium against a team that's played in the national championship before. I believe a lot of those guys were on that national championship team. So, he's walking into a situation and he performed it. You can't take that away from him.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he definitely performed. I'm not going to take that away from him. I just thought this whole situation was kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Just knowing how stacked Georgia's defense is. I mean it was so stacked. In fact, Bryce Young ended up having his first multi-interception game of his college career. Let me look up his stat line real quick. So he ended up finishing the night 35-57 passing, 369 yards. So obviously still was able to get stuff done through the air, even though the points didn't materialize. And then but still had one touchdown, but also had two picks. That last one, obviously, being the pick six, which was just the clincher, which basically just kind of was the dagger for the Crimson Tide. That last pick six, though, man, that is definitely going to be one of those college football moments that you just remember. I mean, I was watching that with my friends, and when you go back and look at the replay of it, when you just see Kirby Smart literally jump over what probably is his own height, he had one of the highest verticals I've ever seen from a head coach in my life. So I mean,
they showed him jumping on this in the background on the sideline.
Yeah,
you can go.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm just surprised he didn't actually like severely injure himself on that play.
I know. I mean, the thing you have to realize about football is people think halftime, it's all about dancing and cheering and music and da da da. But when those teams get into those locker rooms, they go to work, and we saw it from Georgia. I mean, they were down, weren't they? I don't know. I didn't watch till almost midway through the third quarter.
Yeah.
But they went into halftime, close game. They made adjustments. Alabama made adjustments, and that's Georgia came out, and that was it. They started slinging it, and they eventually pulled ahead, and then they had the pick six, and that sealed the game. But people don't realize the importance of halftime. And last night was a perfect example.
Yeah.
The game where they went in, Georgia was down. They were struggling a little bit to get the ball across. They finally, went into halftime, made a few adjustments, and came out firing. I mean, you can't chalk it up any better than that. It's just football. And I mean, even now, I know at the Division III level, we go into that locker room, that whiteboard flying out, whiteboard over there, this position over there, this position over there. And we're sitting there the entire 15 minutes while the cheerleaders and the dancers are going out in the field behind us, drawing plays, figuring out what's wrong, what's working, what's not working, what we got to fix, stuff like that, because that's our only time. That's your only gap to really sit down and go, okay, what's not working, what's working, what are they giving us that we haven't seen, what adjustments do we need to make? And Georgia obviously had better adjustments than Alabama had, and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, and it's they obviously had the better adjustments, and the big story of it obviously is that Kirby Smart was finally able to get that monkey off his back of beating Nick Saban. It's something that a lot of people have talked about him just not being able to do throughout his career. I mean, he's been able to beat some great teams, some great coaches, but his mentor and kind of the guy that really got him into this position was Nick Saban. And coming into this game, it was just like, oh, it's like, yeah, he can get this, but he can't beat Nick Saban. And that was always the big thing with him. And I mean, my friend last night that I was watching with last night, you met him on New Year's, John Warren. We were talking about the game, and he's a big Alabama fan, so he was pretty disappointed by the result. And he ended up saying, I'm happy for Kirby Smart, but this reflects pretty heavily on Saban. But he was quickly to remark, though, that he believes Saban's going to come back next year with a vengeance.
Of course, Saban's always going to be back. When's Saban not in the picture? When is Alabama not in the playoff picture? That's the thing. A team that shows up that much in the playoffs isn't going to win every year. This wasn't their year, but they'll be back next year. We all know it. I'm sure Georgia will be back. They got a young team in some spots, so it'll be interesting. But I'm going to take the Bulldogs again next year.
Yeah, what I'll be interested to see going into next year is when it comes to Georgia and Alabama. I'm wondering, is Georgia are there guys on defense and these guys going to the NFL? Are they just going to be completely depleted next year and not able to kind of come up to this level? Or is Georgia now going to be able to face Alabama in a way that Clemson and Alabama faced off a couple of years ago, where it was just them in the national championship, I think for 3 straight years or something, and it was just back and forth between the two. I'm wondering, is that going to be the new norm between Georgia and Alabama? That still remains to be seen, but I mean, definitely winning a national championship, it helps a ton with recruiting. Georgia's definitely going to be getting a bunch of top tier talent that maybe they were going to miss out on now that they have that national championship back under their belt once again. So I'm excited for what's going to come in college football.
I'm just excited to see how everything pans out. I mean, here we have a team that we haven't really seen much in the playoffs these last few years, coming in, kicking Alabama's butt. Now, like you said, the question is next year, are they going to be there again? Are they even going to be in the picture again? Are we just going to have Georgia, Alabama? I don't know how young either team is. I haven't really looked into the depth of their rosters too much. But from what I do know, I can say that last night, Georgia walked in ready to play, and Alabama thought that they were going to walk in there like the SEC championship, and Georgia showed them that they were there to play, and Georgia played a better football game.
Yeah, no, they really did. I mean, credit to them for being able to improve within those 37 days. So, I mean, absolutely crazy game. Absolutely crazy game to end the Monday. Very wild one indeed. But Sean, I think it's time to now say that we are now officially down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about in this episode, and we will send you guys off into your day. So first things first, we welcome Sean Howe back onto the show. Sean, it is great to have you back on the show. Hopefully we can get you back on again soon.
I'd love to be back. I enjoy every second, every time, and I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. So obviously on this episode today, we started things off by talking to Sean about his favorite football team in a very controversial decision that they made. And it was that the Miami Dolphins parted ways with head coach Brian Flores after 3 seasons. Very interesting move. It'll be very intriguing to see what they do going forward in free agency. Then we moved on to another story in NFL news regarding basically the insane end of the regular season. We talked about all the playoff scenarios that became very prevalent during these last couple of weeks. We talked about the Colts ended up losing to the Jaguars. We talked about the potential tie that could have happened between the Chargers and the Raiders, all the potential playoff situations. And then after that, we moved into talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars fans dressing up as clowns and clowning on Shad Khan and their entire organization. Trent Balk as one of those guys. I showed you that clip of that Jaguars fan basically just saying, "Fire Balk, we want this guy gone." So very interesting situation there. And then we ended things in NCAA football, recapping the college football national championship. The Georgia Bulldogs get it done. And listen, as a Bryant Bulldog, I'm happy to say it. Go Dogs. I'm really happy with that result. So very, very interesting game. The future of college football is definitely going to be a very bright and interesting one. But Sean, thank you once again for coming on, man. And listen, I know that you have kind of your own thing when it comes to football. Is there anything that you want to shout out for yourself before we go?
I'm going to shout out my old teammate who actually plays for the Georgia Bulldogs, Xavier Truss. Congrats on the national championship. Nice seeing a fellow Hawk that I played and graduated 2019, Hendricken, Warwick, Rhode Island. Seeing him out there representing Rhode Island and putting us on a map. Quiddy Pay for the Colts as well.
Yeah.
But
ton of NFL guys there, ton of NCAA talent as well. So congrats to Xavier Truss on the championship. But before we go, just a quick shout out for myself as well. If you're not following Down the Wire yet, make sure you go do that. We're available on all streaming platforms, but the main hub you can reach us on is our Instagram. You can follow that at down.tothewire. Again, at down.tothewire on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. And from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm Sean Howe.
And we will see you guys later. Take care. Have a great one. And peace out.